people don't want to make a leader, they want to be with a leader. And I probably was, I don't know, maybe $25 million short of what could have happened. I just didn't have enough money. The other interesting thing was I thought I was known. You know, I'd been on television for 10 years. I was in Congress. I was governor. I went to New Hampshire and I had 2% name ID. Nobody knew who I was. And then when I went to the South, I had less than that. So, and in order to get name ID, I had to say like crazy things. And I decided I didn't want to do that. Life's too short. And remember, in the media now, it's about eyeballs, and eyeballs get, people get eyeballs if something dramatic happens. And no excuses. Like, I had a great time. I learned so much about the country. I learned a lot about myself. It's just been great. And also being governor, representing 11.5 million people. We are the 7th largest state. Stephanie, it sort of brings a perspective and a strength and just the ability to understand that you can't just serve a few, you have to serve everybody. Everybody has to have an opportunity to rise. I was very interested in what Eric had to say, and we the people, I hope, is what we're going to focus on, because what we all can do to make sure that people have hope. Because, Eric, as I sit here and I listen to all the dramatic changes and everything, we don't even like to be told that we have to drive a different way to work, let alone all this stuff coming at us. And a chunk of the country is very nervous, and you're beginning to see, as I'm sure you notice, is Silicon Valley our friend? I mean, are they here to help us? Or are they here to take my job? And are they here to disrupt? And I think there are solutions, as he mentions, where with the technology and the people from the Valley, they're like coming to the rescue. In other words, they can provide a lot of the technological solutions to give people skills so people have value, people can make money, and people are hopeful and not living saying, I'm really in bad shape and I don't know how I'm going to get things fixed. This is a big deal.
Who's responsible for solving it, though? When you look at the divide in this country, people want that to change. They want a coming together. But what was funny, what many people learned in the last year, your 2 daughters, they think of themselves as global citizens. People in this room think of themselves that way. But somehow we learned in the last year, a lot of people in this country not only don't identify with that idea, they reject it.
Well, look, we're all in this together, and somehow, we can get into the reasons why we're not treating each other right. Look, there are 2 great commandments. All right, let's get into this. I'll shock you now. I'm going to talk about God. Okay, I can see the thought bubbles, God is not about divisions and judgment and condemnation. God is about connection, forgiveness, grace, respect others, love others. The 2 great commandments. Love God. Why? Humility. I get attacked now. I've learned to love attacks because it makes me realize, wait a minute, I'm not so great. So it brings about humility. We all could use a big dose of it, particularly everybody here, because you're all so successful. But the second commandment is love your neighbor as you want your neighbor to love you. Think about that, the profound meaning in, wait a minute, I'm going to treat you how? Because I want you to treat me how? I believe, Stephanie, that if we can recover those basic values, we can break down these walls and this division and this anger and this hatred between ourselves. And, we've kind of walked away from those values that our parents have told us. And I know we're increasingly a secular society, but we all got to think about that compass point, because values cannot be subjective, they have to be objective. And we have been moving faster and faster into subjective. I'm right, you're wrong, I know, you don't. You go hiking up here, if they don't have the trails marked, you better have a compass. And we've got to restore a compass that is positive and connected and patient and forgiving. And then the other part of this, because Stephanie asked me backstage, what's the role of business?
Wait, before we get to that.
Yeah.
I agree with everything you just said, and I think everyone in this room does.
But are we practicing it?
Why didn't America vote for that? Because that's not what we have.
Well, because there are a lot of people who looked at the system and said, it's working against me. I'm really angry, It's like going to a doctor. Okay, you have an illness, you go to a doctor over and over and over again, you don't feel better, so what do? You go to some alternative medicine person, you know, because I've had it with doctors. I've had it with all these medical specialists. They don't know what they're doing. People were looking at politicians and saying, you know, I've kind of had it. My life, you know, my kid doesn't have a job. I lost my job. I'm 53 years old. I've got nowhere to go. My income is stuck. The rich are getting richer. People who are powerful don't give a whit about me. And so I don't want to hear your nonsense. I want about what you've done or what you say. I'm dumping the whole thing out.
And
now,
that's where we are?
Yeah, and the question is, are people now going to say, I kind of got to go back to the doctor, you know? I don't know if that's, I mean, I don't know. That's the real concern.
But then is it not our job to hold people's hand and bring them back to the doctor? The example I'm gonna give, ready? Let's give a job example. The coal industry. People in the coal industry are those exact people whose hearts and lives have been disrupted and broken. And instead of having their hand held saying, you know what? Let me retrain you for a different industry. Instead, the message is, I'm gonna get you your job back, even though economically, environmentally, none of those things work.
Yeah, well, I think that, look, it's an easy thing to say, right? I'm just gonna bring all these jobs back. But I'll tell you, Stephanie, we say we're gonna retrain them. Our retraining doesn't work in this country.
Why?
Because the government programs are bogus. They really don't work.
You do know you're part of the government.
Yeah, and I have argued to people that, look, the thing about a governor is that a governor is somebody that has to actually solve problems. And give me the money from Washington. Let me design the program. Have guardrails. I shouldn't be spending on some nonsense over here to cover my political backside, but give it to me so I can begin to train. But I also believe, we the people, you got to do this. You got to provide the examples and the role models as to how people in your company should behave and perform, where none of us are looking for sainthood, but what's the decent set of rules? And secondly, our education system is not geared to the customer. I mean, whether it's K through 12, where kids graduate, they're not ready for college, whether they go to college, they graduate, and they're not ready for work. I mean, what are we doing? And so he mentioned Sebastian. He didn't mention his name, but Sebastian has a new way of learning. My daughter works at Pink. She's 17 years old. She hates math. She didn't like it. She comes home with spreadsheets now, explaining to her mother about how to order stuff. Her last math test was an A. See, what we need to do is, first of all, determine what are the jobs of the future. What are we going to lose? What are we going to gain? We're trying to do this in Ohio. What are we going to lose? What are we going to gain? And what do we do to prepare kids and tap into what they were born to do? And it's up to all of us to do that. So what do I say? Many of you were involved in school reform. You spend a lot of money on school reform. Great. You really want to know how to change it? Get in the school. Go to the superintendent, the principal, the school board, and they won't like to see you, believe me. Go in and see them and tell them that you want to help them design the curriculum for K through 12. And when you help design the curriculum, it just can't be for IT. Everybody's not going to be a software engineer. We need to design a curriculum that can serve everybody, and you can be involved in it by getting some of your colleagues. You want to impact kids, mentor them, and help design a curriculum of the future and disrupt the current education system. In the four-year schools, accreditation. I would tell you that the CEO of Google's not really interested so much in my degree. The CEO of Google wants to know, what is your skill? So we need to give people skills in different ways. Sebastian has one way to do it. He had the Moog, where people all over the world were learning. But we need to get kids out into and when they go to college, we ought to tell them, what do you want to be? These are the jobs that are available. This is what they pay. What do you think you want to do? We need to treat them like our children and our family. These institutions are so big, they need to change so that we can customize, give skills, and give people hope. If we don't do it, people are going to lose their jobs. Number one job in America is driving cars. In 10 or 11 years, how many drivers are we going to need? So you have to figure out, what do you do with them? And you think we're divided now. Just wait till you have massive dislocation unless we answer the bell now. and it's up to we the people, not somebody else.
In order to do that, we the people or we the leaders need to have long-term vision and long-term execution. And whether you're talking about the CEO of a company whose door is being beaten down by shareholders, activists, investors, Wall Street analysts, or elected officials who need to get reelected
Why don't you
in a
just
year.
why don't you be a leader? I don't know whether you know, but nobody's getting out of this planet alive. And my goal is that when I die, at least 80% of what they say about me at the funeral will be true. What are we clinging to? What are we clinging to? And look, we all cling. I cling. We all cling. But you know what? If you don't have a board that understands the bigger picture and the social consciousness, which fits, by the way, with making money. Michael Novak, the great Catholic theologian, said, free enterprise that doesn't have a set of values is bankrupt. I buy that. I think any CEO can convince their board, if you can't convince your board that we have an obligation to be in the community, to mentor, to develop curriculum, to change the way that people are taught, to give them skills, you need a new board. Because it's not just about making money. Inherit the earth and lose your soul? Baloney. And that's the problem with politicians now. They're all hanging on, they've got to be reelected. But it's not just politics. I see Ezekiel Elliott ran for 231 yards. I don't even know why he's on the football field.
Now you're talking about values.
Well, we are, but that's what it's all about. It's about conscience. It's about, I need to live a life a little bigger than myself. And nobody's telling you that you go and jump off of a building to do all this, but there are so many things that we can all do to make for a little better world. And I'll tell you what, your kids will remember that, and your grandkids will remember that more than the money you lent. Well, maybe not, but close, okay? Maybe close.
All the things we're talking about, though, are about thoughtfulness. Where do you actually implement them? Because again, I just go back to the last year, and when you think about thoughtfulness, you can talk about the NFL, right? You bring up Ezekiel Elliott. In terms of the NFL and this kneeling issue, it's not about whether you're a patriot or not. But those who want to have a thoughtful response to it, a thoughtful response requires a 10-minute sit-down conversation. No one wants to have a sit-down 10-minute conversation.
Well,
right now, it's you're a patriot or not. You build a wall or you don't.
Susan Molinari and I served together on the House Budget Committee. And I remember we'd have sessions, and it was very ideological. And people on my committee would say, well, we'll be here a few hours and we'll shut the Democrats up. I said, are you nuts? We're going to be here all night and we're going to figure out what we're going to give them. Because that's what leadership is. It's to say, we have to think about something bigger than ourselves. The NFL's about money. Okay, I'm all in favor of money. I'm all in favor of free enterprise. But, putting these people, not just the NFL, but any of sports, people that have behaved really poorly and continuing to honor them, that's not right. Our kids watch that stuff. And look, I'm not looking for sainthood. We're all flawed. We all fall short of the righteousness of the Creator. But we can all do a little bit better. I can do a little bit better, on everything I do. As for me personally, we're up almost 500,000 jobs since I became governor. Great, we have money in the bank, couple billion in the bank, back from like Nowheresville. But I made a decision, it ain't good enough just to be successful at that level. What about the mentally ill? What about the drug addicted? What about the people who live in the shadows? That's why I expanded Medicaid. And people want to criticize me for it? Fine, good, have fun, okay? Because I am not going to turn my back on those people. Where does that come from? Friends, values. Give everybody a chance to get up and move on and do well. Race, the issue of race. That's a big darn issue in this country. We formed a group of people who are community leaders, African Americans. We had a person that used to be on MSNBC who was our chairwoman of the deal, along with our head of public safety. We have a unanimous recommendation on the use of deadly force, who you arrest, all the data, how you train, how you recruit. Get into these issues. And if people don't like it, that's okay. Leaders have to be willing to walk a lonely road. So the CEOs here, you ask, how do you specifically engage? Take a school system that is next to you. Get in there, send your employees in for an hour a week for the next year, mentoring kids at all levels, telling them what they can be. And secondly, get in there and begin to change the curriculum. What is the education institution in America that's responding today? Community colleges. They move better than anybody. The four-year schools, they move at the speed of a glacier. And these schools need to be customer focused. They shouldn't be focused on anything but serving the people who are in those institutions. And you can drive it. You know why? Because they have to listen to you because you give them their endowments. So it's up to us. One last thing. Everybody's important. Everybody matters. Everybody can make a difference. And so if you just change the lives of 5 kids, one of them might be that cancer researcher. Please go in and do this, huh? And keep spending your money on your reform, but you're going to get a lot more out of it if you actually get in there. And what you're going to find when you go into public school, many of them aren't going to want you. You know what you tell them? I'm coming. Sorry, I'm going to be here every day till you let me in. It's up to you as to what happens with the people in this country.
When you talk about education, if there is the clearest way to address income inequality, it's education.
No question.
Specifically in our inner cities. But are we telling our kids the wrong things in terms of the American dream that every child should go to a 4-year college? When you think about trade schools, if you needed a plumber to come over your house
My plumber
today,
makes more than my lawyer, okay?
And you can't find a plumber under the age of 55. So something happened in the last 40 years where we said, our kids shouldn't be plumbers or carpenters.
Yeah.
They should all go to college and get communications degrees.
But maybe Stephanie, it's coming the full way because I'm not sure that paper matters as much. It's the skills that matter now. You can do learning at your own speed. I'll give you another thing. I just met a lady from Progressive Insurance. I've asked the insurance companies to put online a basic curriculum so a woman who's working at McDonald's with a couple kids whose bum husband ran out on her can, at her own speed, competency-based education, take the course, pass it, and guess what? Guaranteed an interview, they can get an entry-level position in the insurance industry. All the industries are going to have to start putting this online, okay? Think differently. So now I've got the insurance industry thinking about it. I want the healthcare industry. I'm looking at where are all the baby boomers going to leave, and how do we replace those jobs? And then there should be complete transparency. You want to be a plumber? You're going to make $75,000 a year. I mean, and plumbing is different. Well, plumbing's probably pretty much, but it's always going to be here. No machine is going to, no AI is going to take care of plumbing. The fact is, what you need to do is tap into people's confidence, give them experience. Oh, by the way, if you bring these kids into your businesses and you let them see what life is really like, they should get a full credit for graduation. We need to begin to trust one another, that we're beginning to educate people in a different way. My kid's principal says to me, I took them down to see the Cleveland Cavs, and they got to see Obama and Biden, and it was so great. And I called the principal. I said, can I take them? He said, never let education get in the way of learning. And by the way, my daughter, Emma, she loves basketball. So I said, Emma, we may not get to see the Cavs because when LeBron left Cleveland, I said a couple things. And because I know a couple things. No, I'm just kidding. So I said a couple things. I said, but you'll get to meet the president. She said, Daddy, I've already met the president. I want to meet LeBron.
He's
and
the
she
king.
did.
The
and
king
she
trumps
did.
the president.
Pardon?
The king trumps the president.
Well, what can I tell you?
What you're asking for in terms of bipartisanship is for people to open their minds and their hearts. What you're asking for is for pragmatism. You're actually doing that in terms of healthcare. You're working with Governor Hickenlooper in Colorado. We're seeing no labels. We're seeing the Problem Solvers Caucus. Yet, that gets held up because of ideas like, we promised repeal and replace. If we don't deliver that, we won't get reelected. Does America care what the name is of what they're getting, or do they just want the best education or the best health care?
Of course they do, but look, the politicians now are in a debate about politics, not about policy. So the Democrats, on one hand, and by the way, if you want to criticize Republicans, I can't even find the Democrats. It's like they're like nomads wandering in a desert trying to figure out what they're for. When we were able to stop these Republican health care bills, we wanted flexibility for the states within guardrails. Democrats ran for the hills and hid. because it was politics. Anytime you talk about undoing any piece of Obamacare, even if it makes sense, they're afraid they're going to be attacked from the left. On the right, if you're Republican, you got to worry about every primary coming your way because the districts are not competitive. Just ask Marty about this. A number of us have signed on to a gerrymandering reform friend of the court before the Supreme Court. Very critical decision. All these things, money in politics, gerrymandering, you know, it all matters, but you know what really matters? What's in your heart. Why did you go into politics? Did you go into politics to change the world or to just get reelected? Why did you go into business? Sergey and Larry didn't go into this stuff because they wanted a big airplane. Sergey and Larry got into this because they want to change the world, and then you had Google out of that, you know, it grew out of it. You know, when you are searching for the things that motivate you as a human being, it is amazing the kind of really productive things that can happen to you. And so what I'd say to you that the politics is broken, but much of what we see is broken. Wells Fargo, how's that looking? Equifax, how's that going?
Okay,
Harvey Weinstein, how's that going? I mean, we look around and we have a crisis. But how do we fix it? You and me with our friends, our colleagues, our business people, one person at a time. Patience, you know, kindness.
Okay, but whether we're talking about Equifax or the financial crisis, the CEO of Equifax is going to get to retire with millions of dollars.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
And we'll forget his name. And when the
Yeah.
financial crisis happened, people who were scammed in the whole subprime scandal lost their homes. Many of them still don't have their homes back, but banks all recovered. The people who suffer are the forgotten Americans who stood up and voted for change, but they're not going to get change. So they're suffering now more than ever.
So, you know, all I can do is what I can do. I mean, I'm honored to be here at this event. I mean, with all of you. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I mean, I'm like, how do I ever tell anybody at home back in Columbus, you know, what this Google thing was like, you know? I mean, but I'm here and I'm on television and I have a voice, but more important than what I say is what I do. And I know I'm going to be screwing up somewhere here. And my greatest fear is being hoisted on my own self-righteous petard. But I'm trying to be a voice that says it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, we can have win-win situations. You know, I was with Biden the other day I went to University of Delaware, and he and I had a big talk. And he's a blue-collar kid. My dad was a mailman. I'm a blue-collar kid. And you know. I said the other day, you know, when it comes to the way we feel about America, there's not a dime's worth of difference. Some people are like, you can't say stuff like that. Well, why not? We can argue over the specific issues, but if we are dedicated to solving problems in public life, and I don't know why the hell you'd be in it if you weren't. I mean, there's no money in it. I don't know maybe free tickets or something, I don't know. But when you're in it, you need to solve problems. I mean, I'm kind of being repetitive here, so I need to shut up.
No.
That's what Susan used to tell me. Could you just shut up, John?
When you go back to Ohio, though, and you talk about spending a few days with Google, why don't people know how extraordinary Google is? When you listen to Eric,
no,
I
don't mean to. No, look, we've got Amazon Cloud Computing now, and our two-year schools are now working with Amazon to do that, to be able to train people for cloud computing. We've got IBM Data Analytics. You know, we just have a big investment from Facebook. This is an advertisement that we need something from Google. But in our state, let me tell you what it's so exciting, because what I wanted to do in the state, in Ohio, in the Midwest, something that a lot of people don't get. You know, people who get there first are going to realize they have a first mover advantage. We're doing data analytics. We learned so much out of the Cleveland Clinic. There isn't a better institution on the face of the earth. They commercialize so many products because of the work they do, the brilliance they have. We're involved in data analytics in terms of trying to figure out how women can have healthier babies and what leads to that. What can we glean? We're changing all those things. We're using AI and artificial intelligence to a degree to deal with people who have disabilities. We are involved in major efforts in fiber. We're going to have autonomous vehicles, semi-autonomous vehicles coming in 3 or 4 roads in our state. It is changing. The face of Ohio is going from heavy industry, and we're not against it. We want advanced manufacturing, to where now it's healthcare, it's logistics, it's IT, it's all these things. And I'm trying to get people in our state to understand that you have to push, just like Eric was talking about the future. It's why I love Sebastian. It's the future. We need to aim at the future, not get stuck here, and break down the barriers that keep us from aiming to the future and showing the good that can come from it. Again, I was saying to Sebastian last night, disruption. He goes, I hate that word. I said, yeah, we all hate that word, but the Valley and technology can be in many ways the key to dealing with the problem of disruption and giving people hope, because you have solutions that can help them to get skills, to be more valuable, to have more say as an individual.
How did you get the state of Ohio to embrace that? Because a lot of the things that you speak about are scary. You know, Putin just a couple weeks ago said, whomever owns artificial intelligence is going to control the world. You don't hear our current administration ever talk about things like artificial intelligence.
Look,
no, I mean,
I turned that channel a long time ago, okay?
But if we are really in a pro-business environment, the businesses that our government should embrace are businesses like Google and Amazon. Because on the other side of the world, it's Tencent and Alibaba that are going to rule the world.
I asked a bunch of CEOs, I had my folks ask a bunch of CEOs to sit down and talk about the jobs of the future, what's going to be lost, what's going to gain, what we're going to do. It's like months before they decided they could have a meeting.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know why business is not. Now, Google's going to spend $1 billion. You heard Philip say it. Can't just be IT, by the way, but that's okay. If you can get some partners, that'd be fine. Why aren't people doing this? Amazon's doing some of it, but where are the rest of the companies? I mean, why are they not? Is it because they're buried in quarterly profits? Is it they're worried about their
because
board?
It's who their stakeholders are.
You know what? No.
An average company looks at their stakeholders and they say, my stakeholder are my shareholders, my employees, and my customers.
Okay, so then I'm a politician. My stakeholders are the Republican Party, and that's all I ought to pay attention to? Baloney. You have a bigger mission in life than just running that company. And you know, what's the slogan for Google? Do good. And so it's to get ourselves out of our own way. Live a life a little bigger than ourselves. You know, we can all do it. And you don't have to, break a little china here and there. But I don't think you can just, like the shareholders and the board, I mean, come on. Great companies don't sweat all that stuff. If you take Amazon, for example, I think one of the reasons they've been successful is because, they don't care if they fail at certain things. The same is true with Google. They go out, they take risks. They believe in something bigger than where the company is today. And that is just what it's all about.
But what you're asking for are these companies to take their do-gooding out of their corporate social responsibility department, take it out of their philanthropy department, and put the revenue-generating business lines into doing good.
Well, I don't think you have to do that. For example, down in Cincinnati, where we have a graduation rate of, I think it's like 63%, one of the insurance companies sends their employees to a school, part of the school district with a 63% graduation rate. They mentor these kids, they show them their cars, they dress nice, and they tell them about the future, and they get them excited, and the graduation rate is like 97%. It didn't cost a company that much. It's just, it's employing your people to bring about change.
And how did the people of Ohio vote in the last election?
Well, I whomped him in the primary, and he won Ohio because there was a big brand of people that decided they got to start all over, and they live in places like Youngstown, in the areas that are hard hit. And, the question is, what do we do to give those people hope? That, no, the coal mining jobs are not coming back, but what, in fact, can you do? What is it you want to do? It is amazing how many unfilled jobs there are out there that pay a good salary that no one knows about. Why does no one know this stuff? And so that's our next endeavor. How do we actually get people to understand there's a job for you? Get to the community college. We'll use some of the job training programs. We'll do whatever it takes to get you a job, because when people work, they have hope. When they don't have a job, they're not in a position of where they feel like they matter. And when that happens, bad things happen, and conversely, when they feel as though they've got something, God, life is good.
All right.
That's what we
Then
want.
before we go, because I know we're out of time though, what do we do for them though? Because those forgotten Americans looked at the last 8 years and they said, President Obama visited 50 countries, but he didn't visit 50 states. And someone came to see them in all their cities and they said, I'm gonna care about you. And that's the person who's currently sitting in the White House. If those forgotten Americans end up worse off, which if things pass, there's a good chance they are, then we're only gonna get more divided and people are only going to get angrier. Before that happens, what can people in this room do?
I'm not waiting. There is no wizard behind the curtain. There is no man or woman behind the curtain. It's what I do. Washington is becoming so less relevant. Just give me my money back and my power with guardrails, okay? And then let me go and do it and let me America works best from the bottom up. Everything works better from the bottom up, not the top down. So for me, in my state, it's all about hope. If you have a problem with race, we're gonna address it. If you have a problem with mental illness, we're gonna try to help you. If you are a small business trying to make it, we're gonna try to help you. We're gonna create an environment for you to be successful. It's what I'm doing, and the mayors and the people I meet with, not in Washington. Come on, Washington. I'm not waiting for, we've been waiting for Godot, and guess what? He ain't coming, okay? So it's on us. I appreciate you all listening. Thank you, and what a great privilege and pleasure to be here with so many of you. Thank you.